Looking at the past 6 seasons of NFL data, did you know that over half of teams won fewer games than their preseason win total number, but that the teams who've won at least 2.5 games more than their consensus preseason line have made it to the playoffs nearly 80% of the time? Washington and Denver were 2 such teams last season, but who will be this season's surprise or surprises? That's what we're solving for today. Every team's win totals, some playoff predictions, a few of my favorite season-long player projections, player awards, and of course, my Super Bowl 60 pick. So let's get to it. Welcome back to the Numbers Game. It is our second season. I'm Cynthia Frelund, and it is so good to be back. I hope you had a great summer, that you're excited about your team's chances, and that you are ready to dive back into it head first, because in the NFL, there is no other way. This is our third special episode before we start back into the thick of the regular season. But this preseason special is probably my favorite set of projections all season long. Preseason futures. By the way, this whole week is chock full of great numbers content, so please subscribe, like, comment, hang out, all of it. Remember, you can also get episodes of Numbers Game in audio format anywhere you get your pods as well. If you missed the 2-part fantasy primer, you can catch up before any last-minute drafts, and then starting on Tuesday, so including this Tuesday, September 2nd, 2-time Super Bowl winner Logan Ryan and I are starting our new show called NFL IQ. You can get it on this feed. It's going to be fun. It's basically a man versus machine, math versus player look at some of the biggest games and football topics of the week. Then, of course, we get right into our weekly mission statement, which is to cover every game and every team through the lens of strategic and meaningful numbers. Have you noticed we've been sprucing things up around here? We're making some upgrades all around, like how good is the new intro and graphics situation? One more big upgrade you shouldn't miss is the website, numbersga.me. You'll be able to download my projections and actionable numbers all season long on this site, so go bookmark it. To get to my preseason futures, here's what I did. I ran 1 million simulations of each upcoming regular season game, so 272 million total. That got me regular season win totals, playoff odds, player stat totals, and flags as to where big turning points in the season, maybe by position, maybe by units, happen to be. This helps me understand where the volatility is. Then I ran 3 million sims for each playoff game to get my Super Bowl pick. Can we please get to the good stuff already, Cynthia? Yes, we can. The NFL draft started with 2 teams in the AFC South, so why not start there? The Tennessee Titans find themselves as the 4th place finishers in the division again this season in 38% of my simulations, with a median win total of 6.2 wins. That is more than the 5.5 that Vegas is giving them. One of the stats to highlight about Cam Ward, though, is that last season in Miami, he threw 74 passes that netted at least 20 yards, which was tied for the most. Week 1 against the Broncos defense is a tough welcome to the NFL moment, but my models really like Cam Ward's potential overall. In fact, that is a tease for another part of the show. The Indianapolis Colts project to be my 3rd place AFC South finishers, though the difference between the Colts and the Jags is less than 3 percentage points in terms of finishing slot and just 0.1 median wins. So both sneak slightly past their Vegas forecast of 7.5 wins, and the Colts come in at 7.6 wins. If the Colts want to sneak into that second spot, it will likely be due to their defensive upgrades, as in the newly acquired safety Cam Bynum, who had the 4th highest ball hawk rate last season as a Viking. It was nearly 28%. By the way, Next Gen Stats defines ball hawk rate as the percentage of plays a defender makes when he's on the ball, so he's the nearest guy in coverage. It is basically a metric of passes defensed plus interceptions. And also, the Colts acquired corner Charvarius Ward, who has the lowest missed tackle rate at the position, just 5.6% since 2018. He has had a sub 10% rate in each season he's played, and in 2022, he had 0 missed tackles on 87 attempts. Plus, this is a Lou Anarumo supporter show, so obviously, rookie is more exciting to watch than 2-way star Travis Hunter and his Jags, who come in at 7.7 wins in my model. He gets to play alongside Brian Thomas Jr., who does not get enough shine for his 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns last season, which led all rookies. And on defense, Hunter will be helped by the front, especially Josh Hines-Allen, who had a 26.2% share of the Jags' total team pressures last season. That was the third highest team pressure share rate in the NFL. His 67 pressures were tied for ninth most. For the Jags to trend toward their ceiling projections, which in my model is 8.9 wins, Trevor Lawrence will likely have to have the kind of season we've really been waiting for from him, and that paycheck meaning a big step forward. The Houston Texans again forecast to top the division. This defense could be as good as they come in the NFL, but will they have enough on offense to be a real contender? And specifically, will the O-line be able to help out their third-year quarterback? Last season, C.J. Stroud took 52 sacks and 109 quarterback hits. Those were both second most in the league. He was under pressure at the fourth highest rate on nearly 39% of dropbacks. And this after setting records in 2023 for being the youngest player to lead the league in touchdown to interception ratio is 23-5. And he ranked second in deep passer rating at a 142.8 passer rating. Those are on those 20 plus air yarders. And he had a bunch of accolades, but let's just look at what happened in the second season, which was much tougher. The deep passer rating went down to 52.9. That's like a 100-point drop. The Texans have at least three new starters along the O-line. Left tackle Cam Robinson, left guard Laken Tomlinson. They were both free agents. Then they drafted Ariante Irsere in the second round. Now he should start at right tackle. Titus Howard then goes over to right guard. That's probably what's happening. But due to uncertainties along the O-line, my median projections have the Texans falling short of Vegas's expectations, which is 9.5 wins, but still falling in line with the sportsbook's estimations of them hosting a playoff game in January. As for the NFC South, my fourth place finisher forecast to be the Saints with 5.1 wins, which is a higher number than Vegas's 4.5 win total. I am not going to pretend that I have a forecast for New Orleans that starts anywhere near as hot as they did last season, but I do think we're maybe sleeping on the value Alvin Kamara brings to this offense at least a little bit. In 14 games last season, he racked up 1,493 yards and 8 touchdowns with the sixth most scrimmage yards per game. His average 106.6. He also had the second most receptions and receiving yards. He had 68 for 543. Kellen Moore, pretty sure he knows how to scheme for dynamic running backs. So here's my first favorite player note. It's Alvin Kamara to rush for more than 750.5 yards all season. Okay, I have him well over 1,000 total yards. So yeah, I pretty much love that one. The Carolina Panthers end up third in the division with 7.2 wins in my model, a bit more than the 6.5 forecast by Vegas. Shoring up the defense, especially against the run, will be a big factor in just how many games they can win. They allowed 179.8 rushing yards per game. That was the most by any team since the 1987 Falcons last season. The 5.2 yard per carry average will be helped by the return of Derek Brown. The defensive tackle missed the final 16 games last season with a torn meniscus. In 2023, though, he had 103 tackles, which was the most by a defensive tackle since at least 1994, and earned him a trip to the Pro Bowl. In second place, the Atlanta Falcons with 8.4 wins, which is slightly less than the 8.5 they're projected to win as sportsbooks. Losing right tackle Caleb McGarry for the season introduces uncertainty on offense. On defense, my models usually love the strategy of doubling down on positions of need like pass rushing, and Atlanta basically tripled down. They drafted Jalen Walker at 15, James Pierce Jr. at 26, and they added Leonard Floyd in free agency. This after having just 31 sacks and a 28.1 pressure rate last season. Next Gen Stats both rank those as the second fewest in the league. I say usually here because the sum of those specific parts did not net a production potential to overcome the schedule, like facing the entire NFC West, to a higher win total than the Bucs. Speaking of the Buccaneers, they project to repeat as division winners in my model with 9.7 wins, which just sneaks past Vegas's projection of 9.5. They were sitting at an even higher number before Tristan Wirfs' surgery. You know I love an off-ball linebacker, so of course the note is on one here. Last season, Levante David led all off-ball linebackers with 23 quick pressures. Remember, Next Gen Stats defines those as ones that occur in under 2.5 seconds. He also had 122 tackles and 3 forced fumbles. That's the 5th time in his career that he's eclipsed triple-digit tackles with at least 3 forced fumbles. No other player since 2000 has had more than 3 such seasons. Now that we've gone through both the AFC South and the NFC South, how about we do a round of good for 6? That is 6 quick projections my models forecast to occur in at least 60% of simulations. In this case, It is 6 season-long projections. Number 1, Tampa Bay's wideout Mike Evans to haul in more than 7.5 touchdowns. Of course, the number is set at 1,000.5 for his receiving yard total, and I believe he bests that mark for the 12th consecutive season. Remember, he's the only player that has done so in his first 11 seasons. That ties him with Jerry Rice for the most consecutive seasons at 11, but Jerry didn't do it in his first 11. With one more over 1,000 yarder, Evans will be alone in the history books. My point here is, if you believe that he's going to eclipse 1,000, then add the 7.5 touchdowns to make the ROI even better. Number 2, Detroit's running back Jahmyr Gibbs to have more than 425.5 receiving yards. Your fantasy PPR leader from last year forecast for over 540 such yards in my models. Number 3, San Francisco's quarterback Brock Purdy to have more than 4,000 passing yards. He nets more than 4,200 in his median projection in my model. Number 4, the Titans running back Tony Pollard to rush for more than 950.5 yards. An improved O-line, a banged up rest of the running back room, and he's healthy, and a rookie quarterback who forecasts to improve every game. That is a formula for success. I have him with more than 1,230 yards in the majority of my simulations. Number 5, Denver's quarterback Bo Nix to pass for more than 3,500.5 yards. One of my favorite Nix stats is about throwing on the run. No quarterback had more passing yards than his 904, along with 8 touchdowns that were all thrown while he was on the run last season. And Next Gen Stats defines this as running faster than 8 miles per hour. That is like a sprint. Only Patrick Mahomes in 3 separate seasons had more such passing yards. By the way, that was in 2018, 2020, and 2021. And number 6, Vegas's quarterback Geno Smith to throw for more than 20.5 touchdowns. The run game is much improved with Ashton Genty in town to help lift the league's lowest ranked run game from 2024. But run helps pass and pass helps run. And Geno is deadly accurate with the deep ball. By the way, that is not even a 1.5 touchdown per game average for him either. Starting in Las Vegas, let's move to the AFC West, where I have Pete Carroll's squad besting the sportsbook number, which is 6.5, and ending up with 7.4 wins. I'm going back to the Geno well here because Smith gives this offense a ton of upside under Chip Kelly's architecture. As a reminder, last season in Seattle, Smith set career highs with a 70.4 completion percentage, 4,320 passing yards. Both, by the way, were top 5 in the NFL. And he's tied with Patrick Mahomes for the most game-winning drive since 2023. That's 9 games. And he's had the most fourth quarter comebacks in the NFL since 2023 with 8. And just so we're clear, he led the NFL with a 69.8 completion percentage in 2022. I also like that he is not afraid to flip people off if need be. See the preseason game that they played against Seattle. Winner. The Chargers come in at 8.7 wins and 3rd in the division. This number is less than the 9.5 Vegas predicts. However, they are only 0.1 wins off the playoff mark in my model, which means Los Angeles is a fringe playoff team for me. Yes, I am absolutely going to bring up Rashawn Slater being out because this is a problem. O-linemen are a big deal. Since 2022, Justin Herbert, the quarterback, has averaged 1.4 more air yards per attempt with Slater on the field versus off. The numbers are 8.2 on, 6.8 off. That 6.8 would be the second fewest among 44 qualified quarterbacks over that time period. So we're hearing that Joe Alt moves over to the left tackle position from the right. And now that's what happened in week 18. So this is why we're looking at this. And on the right, he allowed a sub 7% pressure rate. That was the 9th lowest among right tackles overall and 6th lowest by a rookie since 2018. He did well over there. However, these tiny margins are what separates regular and postseason play, though. At 9.7 wins, the Denver Broncos take 2nd in the division, forecast to return to the playoffs as a wild card, and pass the 9.5 win hurdle set at sportsbooks. The Broncos may slot in as a wild card, but they're actually in the top 4 in the AFC in Super Bowl odds for me, in large part due to their defense. If free agent acquisition Dre Greenlaw comes back from the Achilles injury that sidelined him for all but 2 games in 2024 and has a 2023-like season, look out. He had the best, so lowest, receptions over expected in coverage metric at the position in the NFL in 2023. It was negative 7.9. Add that to the sack leading 2024 front and the reigning defensive player of the year corner and drafting a corner who allowed 0 touchdowns in coverage at Texas last season, and yikes. Hey guys, the Chiefs still forecast to win the West. I have 11.2 wins projected for them, which is lower than the 11.5 that sportsbooks pick. Don't hate them for always being there at the end. Be happy we get to be witnessing this dynasty, or be even more happy when your team beats them because it's super freaking hard to do. Also, don't forget that they were extremely highly rated all last season in missed tackle rate, as in they didn't miss tackles. This season's schedule is harder than last season's, so it would not take much for them to make up that 0.3 win total difference between me and Vegas, meaning I wouldn't fade them, but I understand if you'd want to, I'm not going to do it. Moving to the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks, by the slimmest of margins, end up fourth with 8.3 wins, which is 0.2 less than expected by Vegas. Truly, the tiniest differences in schedule matter here, as they play the second place schedule in the division. If the O-line can keep Sam Darnold cleaner than my projections forecast, they will trend toward a much higher total. I also have the defense being their anchor even more than last season, which was already great. Leonard Williams had 50 total pressures, which was fourth among defensive tackles, and 11 of those turned into sacks. He had a 2.5 sack rate, which was second highest at the position. Only Dexter Lawrence passed him in this metric. The Arizona Cardinals feel like my enigma team this season. Every year, there's one team that has a bunch of volatility, but also a pretty favorable schedule. Enter Arizona, who comes in at 8.4 wins in my median projection. They have reasonable outcomes in my model where they're either first in the West or fourth. This is probably why sportsbooks have them at 8.5 wins. The defense is where I have the most volatility projected, as in if adding Calais Campbell, rookie Will Johnson, Josh Sweat, who led the Eagles with 8 sacks, had 15 quarterback hits, which was the second most on the team, and is one of only 6 edges with at least 4 sacks and 10 quarterback hits in each of the last 6 seasons. If all of that fits well with the specimen that Budda Baker is, and oh yeah, they get Darius Robinson back, and even more. And by the way, Walter Nolan, if he comes off PUP and can contribute, then this team forecasts to trend much higher. But there is also risk there because did you hear the number of ifs I just said? Let's keep the risk train rolling as the Rams are sitting at 9.1 wins for me, fewer than Vegas thinks at 9.5. This one kind of comes down to Matthew Stafford's back. Sean McVay has said his quarterback is good to go and looking like a stud, but to say there isn't an elevated risk here feels like a little bit of a bridge too far. I will go to the mat for saying that Matthew Stafford is underrated, even though he was a first overall pick, whatever. I still think that given that the man has battled through getting crushed behind some terrible Detroit O-lines, like a broken collarbone, his shoulder was, I think his arm was ripped off at one point. Anyways, backs, they are risky business, especially at this stage in his career. Now, his secret power is to be accurate on plays after being pressured. That is another thing that a back could impact. And the Rams, their outcome cascades all the way through the NFC. So right now I have them sneaking through as a wild card, but it is volatile. At the top of the NFC West heap is the Niners. Do I love this with their injury list to start the season? Nope. But here we go. At 9.6 wins, this is a lower total than the 10.5 at sportsbooks. The fourth place schedule is part of why they go from worst to first here, but George Kittle being as solid as they come is a much bigger factor. My models give him great odds of earning more than 900.5 receiving yards. Next Gen Stats shows that he had 551 yards after the catch last season, with only Brock Bowers having more at the position. This is the perfect spot for Synth AI, which is where I use AI's typical user experience in reverse. So instead of asking an LLM, a large language model, for an answer, I ask my LLM, the one I created, to surface questions that are hopefully a good proxy for the 3 most interesting questions you want me to research for you. Coming in at number 3 is about Saquon Barkley. What kind of season to expect? What kind of outcomes for fantasy, etc. First off, here's my projection for him. Running back number 4 overall pick number 6 in PPR fantasy projections with 1,548 rushing yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, 41 receptions, and 298 receiving yards, along with 2 more receiving touchdowns. This may seem conservative, but you'll see when we get to the Eagles part, my models have the most wins in the NFC forecast for them. So perhaps A.J. Dillon may get a little more burn to help keep Barkley's legs fresh for the long haul. Question 2 is about how to handle Dallas overall now that Micah has left the building. I think this question tends a little bit more towards offense, probably because of fantasy football. So let's just investigate that side of the ball. I do like the Tyler Booker guard pick to help replace Zach Martin, which is very hard to do, but at least they're trying there. The run game, huge question mark. And when your defense is questionable, you want to have your run game control the ball more often, huge question mark. So it's possible Dak will be throwing a ton. It's possible adding George Pickens will free up CeeDee Lamb even more. However, Even if there isn't a ton of space, Dak doesn't seem to care. He did target receivers with less than 1 yard of separation on a league high 21.3% of pass attempts last season. This is a trend for him. He's at about 18%, tracking at 18% since 2018. That's the second highest rate in the league. Now, George Pickens, he's actually really good at catching such passes. Second highest catch rate on them since entering the league in 2022. CeeDee Lamb, by the way, no worries about him. 3 consecutive seasons of 100 plus receptions, along with forcing 27 missed tackles on 115 touches last season. That's tied for best. What is my point? It seems like they could have a Bengals-like situation from last season where the defense asks a lot of the offense and the offense could deliver, but it's also a little dicier than Cincy last season because Dak was turnover prone. The run game is still unproven. That kind of helps with turnovers. So for me, this equates to Lamb having more than 1,225.5 yards in 59% of simulations. And question 1, navigating Aaron Rodgers. The answer is mid. My models don't think he lights up the stat sheet like he did in his heyday in Green Bay, but it's not gloom and doom in Pittsburgh either. You'll see that part in the win totals. But as for the offense, I expect more of the quick passes we saw last season. Rodgers had the 5th quickest time to throw, 2.69 seconds, and 52.2% of his passes happened in sub 2.5 seconds, which was the 3rd highest rate in the league. I expect his results when getting the ball out quickly to be better, though. Last year, it was 69.5 in terms of completion percentage. That was 2nd lowest. And he had the 2nd most interceptions on such passes. He had 5 of them. I expect all of those to lift up and be better, which helps drive DK Metcalf as my wide receiver 22, and don't sleep on Jonnu Smith. Moving to Aaron Rodgers' new division, the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns come in at 5.6 wins, just a hair above the 5.5 Vegas has set for them. The Browns missed the playoffs for the 2nd season in my model. However, don't sleep on Jerry Jeudy. In weeks 11 through 18 last season, he led the league with 811 yards. For the season, he had 90 receptions and 1,229 yards. Right now, the number for him, 875.5. Big disparity there. If we were doing menus for this, it would be about the blandest bland thing you get for him to best that number. Bland means bland. It's going to happen. Of all my win totals, this next one is the one I don't like the most. I don't want Mike Tomlin to have his first non-winning season since taking over in 2007, but the math says 8.3, which is less than 8.5. You know where I'm going here with the good nugget, though. Patrick Queen, of course. Pittsburgh's linebacker is one of just 3 players who posted 100-plus tackles, 5 or more tackles for loss, and 5 or more passes defensed last season. The defense keeps the floor high for the Steelers yet again. Cincinnati comes in at 9.1 wins, which is fewer than the 9.5 sportsbooks are projecting, but still good enough for a wildcard berth in my model. Not only do I have Joe Burrow forecast to lead the NFL in passing touchdowns and Jamar Chase to again be the Triple Crown winner, something I have never forecast back-to-back before, but I really like Chase Brown to add more than 1,000 yards, which is considerably more than the 925.5 he's forecast for. The Bengals defense, even with first-rounder Shamar Stewart and last season's sack leader Trey Hendrickson up front, they're ready to go, but the defense is still their limiting factor. Sure, it could drive some offensive stats, but it also lowers their probability of ending up in Santa Clara come February. At 11.6 wins, the Ravens take the division in my model, end up as the most likely 2 seed, and get past their 11.5 Vegas number. I'm sure we'll do 1 billion stats on Lamar Jackson this season, so let's keep the linebacker theme going and talk about Roquan Smith. In the run game, no qualified player had a tackle that resulted in a negative play for the offense, the opposing offense, on a higher percentage of snaps than Smith at 18.5%. His 57 run stops ranks 5th most in the NFL. Now the Ravens, more on them in my Super Bowl contender section. Switching over to the NFC North, the Bears land at 7.8 wins and 4th in the North. Now, the North is extremely competitive, so 7.8 doesn't sound great, but that's actually a very respectable number. I like the O-line investment, especially the interior line that got a lot of love from Ryan Poles this offseason. I also like a play caller who is expert at designing schemes for the strength of his players and not forcing square pegs into round holes, which Ben Johnson has shown he is masterful at. This team goes as their quarterback goes in many ways, though, which means that there is risk. And while it's more fun to project Chicago to the moon, The pattern usually follows that shifting and rebuilding takes more than one offseason, especially in a division that had 3 playoff teams last season, even though Chicago had a very, very good offseason. Also, 7.8 is more than 7.5, which is where sportsbooks say the team will land. The Minnesota Vikings at 8.6 wins are less than half a game off my preseason NFC playoff line, which means if JJ McCarthy is able to pick up and execute the KOC offense quickly, the upside could easily mean a trip to the postseason. Coming off a knee injury and with missing/new pieces in the receiving core, Adam Thielen returned to mini last week, it's not unreasonable to assume that McCarthy could take a minute to get his timing, rhythm, and flow at the NFL level all coordinated, even with Justin Jefferson there, who does cure many, many ailments. Just for fun, I looked at Jefferson's numbers. Vegas has 1,250.5. I have 1,598. Maybe you've heard that the Packers traded for Micah Parsons last week. I think the trendy thing to do was to talk about the Pack in the Super Bowl. It did increase their NFC Championship game odds by 5 percentage points. The leader in the clubhouse is at 27% right now, so an increase of 5 percentage points is a lot. It also increased their opportunity to win the Super Bowl. That number looks really small because it's preseason, doesn't matter. But I don't actually have the Packer beating out the Lions for the division. I have Green Bay with 10 wins, which is less than Vegas's 10.5, which moved a ton last week on the trade news. The week 1 game at Lambeau is a big deal in terms of who wins the division, though. At 10.1 wins, the Detroit Lions not only passed their projected 9.5 win total, but also sneak past those Packers and remain NFC North champs. Aiden Hutchinson, who returns from injury and was on a tear last season, earns 15 sacks, which tops the league in my model. And it's also a lot more than 12.75 sacks. Let's do a special award section here for my 3 favorite postseason awards. Number 1, Defensive Rookie of the Year. The past 5 winners started in the top 5 in terms of odds, so long shots have won less in recent seasons. 6 of the last 10 were pass rushers, and every single Defensive Rookie of the Year in 25 years was a top 40 pick. 22 of them were first rounders, 20 of the 22 were drafted in the top 15, so that might seem like a good reason to look at Abdul Carter, and probably why he's the favorite. But I'm also adding in improvement in wins over year, which means my model circles the 11th pick in the draft, Michael Williams as your D-Roy. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I understand why Ashton Genty is the favorite. I love the kid as well. But I think Cam Ward is being undervalued at the position's most valuable spot. I expect his game to evolve over the season, much in the same way we saw Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels last season. The throws past the sticks in college make me excited to see what he can cook up at the next level. And MVP, Joe Burrow, who ranks no better than 3rd in odds everywhere that I've seen. If you agree with my win totals and the Bengals' odds to return to the playoffs, Burrow is not only in a great spot to take the award, but maybe could play deep into January. Oh, and it could start out strong this year as I have them slated to win their first 2 games for the first time in Joe Burrow's career. He and the team have started 1-9 over the past 5 seasons in the first 2 weeks of the season. With 6.1 wins, the Miami Dolphins fall short of their 7.5 number per Vegas. No quarterback got the ball out faster than Tua Tagovailoa last season, 2.42 seconds, which will help them navigate an O-line without Teron Armstead. Here's where the risk starts to compound, though, and thus takes chunks out of their win total. 1, Devon Achane has a calf injury. 2, Tyreek Hill could be injured, and also maybe there's some weirdness there. Then we have the secondary. Outside of getting Minkah Fitzpatrick, there's a lot of question marks, signing people last week like Rasul Douglas. My point is any one of these things could be overcome, but it seems like the rate that they're compounding at will take bites out of their wins. At 6.4 wins, the Jets end up just a touch under their 6.5 win total mark. One thing I'm looking for here is the use of 12 personnel, so 2 tight end sets, to increase. Last season, the Jets used it on 20.9% of plays. That was 17th, so about average, and only averaged 4.4 yards when doing so. That was 5th fewest. So they did it at an average rate, didn't go so well for them. New OC, Tanner Engstrand, who was at the Lions. He was the Lions tight end coach and passing game coordinator last season. He's used to a system where 12 is used a ton. The Lions did it at the 3rd highest rate, 32.3%. They earned the 5th most yards per play when they use this formation, 6.2. Mason Taylor, late round fantasy pick, anyone? Let's keep traveling north to the Patriots, who end up with 8.8 wins, which is just over their 8.5 sportsbook line. There are some recent moves that add volatility here, like releasing Jabril Peppers last week, trying to move on from Kyle Duggars, and now maybe Christian Gonzalez is a bit injured. But there have also been a ton of improvements to the team as a whole. And if you notice, Drake May and company are actually projected to get to the postseason in my model. They're like the 7th seed for me. The division still belongs to the Bills, who project to win 11.8 games, the tops in the AFC. They earn the lone conference bye in my model, even though they don't quite get to that 12.5 win total Vegas is using. Fun fact that is important for week one's matchup with the Ravens, Greg Rousseau had the second best, as in lowest, run-stopping EPA among edge rushers last season. They're going to need that against Derrick Henry and company. The NFC East fourth place finisher forecast to be a team with a way better defensive front than their win total of 5.7 might suggest. It is still higher than Vegas's 5.5 wins, though. The Giants' Dexter Lawrence was double-teamed at the highest rate in the league this last season, nearly 64% of his pass rush snaps. That's ridiculous. In fact, it was the highest rate since we've been tracking with next-gen stats. Good news for Dex, though. With Abdul Carter on the edge, perhaps he'll get a little less attention, a little more alone time. New York has my hardest preseason schedule forecast, which feels nuts given they're playing a fourth-place schedule. The Cowboys clock in with 5.8 wins, which is quite a few less than the 7.5 Vegas has them down for. To be fair, I had this number in the low sixes before Parsons got traded away. It was 6.4, but then if you would have added Trayvon Diggs, who looks like he's going to play, it probably would have gone up to 6.5. Still less than 7.5. Last year's biggest win total riser, the Washington Commanders, are set for 10.4 wins in my model, which is quite a jump from the 9.5 that sportsbooks project. The Commanders have some age-related risk with some older players in key positions, but one veteran that was a big plus is Laramie Tunsil. The 5-time Pro Bowler allowed just an 8.3 pressure rate, which was tied for the 12th lowest last season per next-gen stat among left tackles. Which means, for the first time since the 2003-2004 season, the winner of the NFC is projected to win back-to-back seasons. It's the Eagles at 11.6 wins, which is just a tick above the 11.5 that their line is set at. Should Micah Parsons play at least 14 games for the Packers, it forecasts to shift the balance atop the NFC to allow the Eagles the sole bye in the conference, meaning both conference winners come from their respective Easts, AFC East, NFC East. This means my playoffs right now look like this. AFC, 1 seed Bills, 2 Ravens, 3 Chiefs, 4 Texans, 5 Broncos, 6 Bengals, 7 Pats. In the NFC, it goes Eagles, Lions, Bucks, Niners, Commanders, Packers, and Rams. However, my most likely Super Bowl participants are a little different. Starting in the AFC, it's 4, the Broncos, 3, the Ravens, 2, the Chiefs, and number 1, the Bills. In the NFC, it's 4, the Packers, 3, the Commanders, 2, the Lions, and 1, the Eagles. Playing that math out, I have the Bills over the Eagles in Super Bowl 60. I hope you love season-long futures as much as me. I do know that I absolutely love that we are back. I can't wait to spend the season talking numbers together. Remember to like, subscribe, pass the show along, sign up in all audio formats, leave some reviews, both here, podcast, wherever you want to be. And mostly go check out the Numbers Game website, get all my projections so you can use them as you wish, numbersga.me. Enjoy all of the fun things that are happening this week. We're going to come back before a game, so I'd say happy games, but we still have more things to talk about, more numbers to get to before the games even start. So have a great day. I'll see you back here tomorrow.